I believe you testified that you downloaded, you estimated, I believe, 700?
So, yes, the batch that I downloaded from 2015, maybe the calls descended into 2016 as well. I don't remember. I think it was around 700 audio files. So that would represent 700 calls. It's not 700 exactly, but that's what I remember.
I understand. And you, do you have a ballpark of how many you reviewed?
I didn't review all of them.
Okay.
And a matter of fact, I probably reviewed like maybe 50 to 75.
Okay. And regardless of how many you personally reviewed, when you downloaded them, they are saved onto your computer, your hard drive. Correct?
All of them are saved, yes.
Okay, and they would have been passed on to the prosecution team in this case, so they could review all of them, correct?
That's correct.
All right, cool. All right, I just want to, your job actually with the DA's office right now is you do prelims. You cover prelims for cases, correct? Amongst other things.
That's correct.
All right. And I just want to unpack a little bit about what you said about preliminary hearings, is when I say prelims, preliminary hearings. You said typically a lead detective testifies.
That's right.
Okay. And you said hearsay is allowed, meaning the lead detective is allowed to testify about what other people said.
That's correct.
Okay. And you are aware that jail call that was played that was tough to hear, a little bit low, that was from November 19th, 2015, correct?
That's right.
All right. And November 19th, 2015 is the day that Shannon Stillwell had his prelim, correct?
That's what I recall, yes.
Okay. And that's why you had interest in that call.
That's right.
All right. And that call was made later in the day after Mr. Stillwell would have returned back to the jail from his preliminary hearing.
That's right.
All right. In Shannon, in Mr. Stillwell's preliminary hearing specifically, I know you said lead detectives generally are the only ones that testified. Detective Thorpe testified in that preliminary hearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Kenneth Copeland did not testify.
No.
Demekion Garlington did not testify.
No.
Quindarius Zachary did not testify.
No.
Okay. And I know it's hard to hear, but we're going to bring some volume to it, okay? Mr. Stillwell on that call said, I just went to court and they let everything out.
That sounds right, yes.
Okay, and that was after Detective Thorpe testified, correct?
That's right, after he heard Detective Thorpe's testimony. Correct.
Okay, he said they threw out, and it was tough to hear, so I want to make sure we're clear. On that call, he said they threw out Yak, Duop, Nard, correct?
I don't recall that they threw out Yak.
And I'm not suggesting throughout the case. I'm saying throughout the names.
That sounds right. I definitely heard him mention those names.
Okay.
So I took it to mean maybe like their names were mentioned, maybe.
Right. And because it was hard to hear, I'm just trying to make it clear. He's not saying, and nowhere in that call did he say he was with those people or anything like that day.
No.
Okay. And again, those names were mentioned by Detective Thorpe, correct?
That's right.
All right, cool. And he was, well, you can't testify to his mind state, but in that call, he said F word D, Woody, and the other D, correct?
I don't know. Yeah, that's not a verbatim quote. It's pretty close. I mean, I think you the spirit of his comment was captured in your quotation there.
Okay, and then he said, them, F, N-words, know what is going on.
Something along those lines, yeah.
And then that's the case that was, I mean, that's the tape that was played in court today, but there are 8 other calls on that CD, correct?
Correct.
All right. You also listened in on another call that Mr. Stillwell had with that same young lady on November 23rd, 2015, correct?
I think so. That sounds right.
At 16:08, at 4:08 p.m.
That sounds correct.
All right. At 5:07 into that call, Mr. Stillwell says, N-words will say whatever, correct?
That sounds correct. I know that was the general spirit. I don't know if that's an exact quotation as to what he said.
Okay. At 5:15 in that call, Mr. Stillwell said, they just trying to get the heat off their ass.
Again, that sounds like the general that was something along the lines of what he said, that was the topic of conversation. I just can't say if that was a verbatim quote or not.
And again, Mr. Copeland at that time was facing federal and state charges.
That's right.
And Mr. Zachary, the other D, was facing charges related to the April 28th, 2015 shooting of houses, correct?
That's right.
All right. Mr. Stillwell in that November 23rd, 2015 call said, people will say anything to save their ass.
Mr. Sharp would like to play the calls.
Sustained.
Okay. It is in evidence. Trying to save some time, but
I appreciate that. But if there's a valid objection, I've got to sustain it.
okay. All right.
Thank you.
I twisted his arm. Also in that call, and this is just one more, and then we'll move on. Mr. Stillwell said, they will sit right there and lie.
I don't recall that exact utterance being made, but it wouldn't be inconsistent with the general tone and of the call and the other things that he was saying.
Okay, cool. All right. Regarding Mr. Copeland's cell records and the plotting you did, let me get this right. 722 is the 911 call.
Yes.
Okay. You said at 726 you have Mr. Copeland headset pinging on the tower. So 4 minutes later, he's pinging on the tower at the green store or in the vicinity of the green store.
That is correct. It had moved north to that tower, so it was actually south of that tower seconds prior to, but yes.
Well, you don't actually, cell phone records aren't like a chart where you see, for instance, a cursor moving through a map, are they? You don't see real-time movements during a call, do you?
No.
You just get spots in certain points in time.
Yes, that's
when cell calls are initiated.
That is well. You get the tower and the antenna utilized by the handset at the time of the call. It's a very big area.
But just at the time, right? Vague area, but also just at the time of the initiation of the call.
Correct.
Okay. And so 4 minutes after the purported time of the 911 call, that headset is utilizing the tower near the green store.
That's right.
Okay. And we also, the truth is, we can speculate. We don't know how much time passed. We know the 911 call was made at 7:22, but we don't know how much time passed between the shooting and the 911 call, do we?
No, I can't say exactly. I from what I recall, is pretty quickly, but I can't say the exact seconds.
Well, we don't. I mean, people before they call 911, they can try to hide guns, right?
There's any number of things people can do before they call 911.
They can try to get guns before they call 911.
the possibilities are endless as to what somebody could do before
Right.
they call 911.
And some people will do certain things before they call the police to where they're at.
No objection. Speculation.
Sustained.
Well, the bottom line is we don't know how much time passed. So we're dealing with inexact times.
Yes.
Okay, great. And you would agree that the green store is within a minute drive of the barbershop?
It's pretty close. I don't know. I can't say if it's a minute, but it's less than a mile away.
Less than a mile away. Thank you. All right. Finally, I'm just going to ask you about one other matter. Javaris Bradford has come up, a.k.a. Tudor, right?
Yes.
Okay. He's the owner of, through your investigator, he's the owner of the Pontiac at the Texaco.
Yeah, from what I recall, he was the registered owner.
Right. And he came up in your investigation and the fact that Pontiac was on the video piqued your interest.
That's what I said. Yep.
All right. At some point in November of 2018, he wasn't charged in 2015.
He wasn't.
Okay. In November of 2018, he was still in the community, correct? He wasn't in jail or anything.
That's right.
All right. And you determined that you wanted to speak to him.
I did.
All right. And did you reach out to him?
I don't think I reached out to him. It was likely a DA's office investigator. Somebody reached out to him.
Okay. And was he asked to come in? Was he compelled to come into the DA's office? How did that work?
I believe we gave him a grand jury subpoena, if I remember correctly.
Okay, you issued a grand jury subpoena for him to come in and speak to you?
The grand jury was in session that day. Having never spoken to him, I wanted to speak with him before I potentially put him up before the grand jury, and I did end up speaking with him, and at that point I determined that not to put him up.
Okay, that was November 13th, 2018, correct?
That's correct.
And you had a meeting with him in a conference room in the DA's office, correct?
Right, it was on video. I have it right here, actually.
Yes. And present were you, Investigator Thorpe, at some point came into the meeting, correct?
Investigator Thorpe, I think he was present the entire meeting.
Okay.
It's on video, but from what I remember, he was there the entire time.
Okay. And then I don't want to mess up the young lady's name, so I'm not even going to try, but there was an investigator with the DA's office. Could you say her name correctly?
Cynthia Nwakocha.
Nwakocha.
Cynthia, first name, last name, Nwokocha, I believe.
Okay. Thank you. And Javaris Bradford showed up, correct?
That's correct.
He did not have an attorney.
He did not.
And he showed up to the conference room without an attorney, correct?
Sustained.
Okay. For this meeting, you had video from the Texaco, or was it stills or video?
There were definitely stills. I think it may have, I can't recall if I played motion pictures of the surveillance video or I just had stills. He was at the very least showed still images.
And you told him, in fact, that you were investigating the homicide of Donovan Thomas.
I'm going to object to research point as to what Mr. Sprinkle told Mr. Bradford.
Sustained.
To what? I'm not asking what Mr. Bradford told Mr. Spring. I'm asking what Mr. Sprinkle told Mr. Bradford.
Oh, okay. Overruled.
Actual statement.
Well, y'all can ask him. He's right here.
Okay. So you told him that there was evidence against him in this case.
I don't recall exactly what I said. I bet I likely said that to him. I would go so far as to say as yes, I did. That would
report. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yes, I'm sure I said that to him because there was.
Okay. And you wanted him to speak to you about who was at the Texaco, correct?
I did.
Okay. And you told him that your supervisor wanted to charge him, but you were holding things off to give him a chance to talk.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Sustained.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Was your supervisor Pat Dutcher at the time?
He was in.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
You may.
Okay, so they approached the bench. Let's see if we can get
Like
back.
50 minutes to spare.
That is correct. All right. Is any other defense attorney going to have questions for Mr. Sprinkle?
Briefly.
Okay. All right. I think we can fit in another one or maybe two.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sprinkle, or ADA Sprinkle.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Can I just look at this? You can see this demonstrative, right?
I can.
I'll leave this here. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. I don't see Mr. Kendrick's phone on there.
That is correct.
So you didn't do any analysis for Mr. Kendrick's phone on January the 10th, 2015.
I was without records to analyze for Mr. Kendrick's phone.
Okay, so you have no records of his phone on that date, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I would like to ask questions.
All right.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm okay. How you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you.
I'll actually let you know if I'm okay. Can I ask you some questions?
Well, yes, please.
Thank you. So, want to just go into a few different topics. The way this was set up in your office, and you specifically work in this case, I think you made it clear. I'm going to be very brief, but if I'm wrong, just say I got it wrong. Law enforcement officers with whomever, FBI, APD, GBI, whomever is working the case, eventually your office may get involved and summon, or they give to you their work product or their files on the case. Fair to say?
That's fair to say, yes.
And then what you're doing is, because you're law enforcement, but you're the arm of the attorneys who come to court, you have to look at everything and prepare it or not prepare it for any type of charges.
That's right.
All right. And when I say charge, I mean formal charge. I know, ladies and gentlemen, know police can issue warrants, but warrants aren't an official charging document. That would be an accusation or a bill of indictment.
Yes.
When you got, and I'm focused only on this case, obviously, okay? When you get the file, you're getting the files from everybody who touched the case, as far as you could tell, from crime labs, from law enforcement, APD, GBI, whomever. I'm not eliminating, I'm not trying to keep out other agencies, but you try to get all those files together.
Well, yeah, I try to get all the documents or whatever media that every agency that investigated the case has. I mean, I want to get as much as possible.
Sure. Now, when you get the APD files, Atlanta Police Department files, and you start looking at them and reviewing them, I want to ask you if you can remember. Do you remember any notation from Detective Thorpe that he reviewed the McDonald's surveillance video from January 10th, either January 10th, 2015, and he did that on or about January 11th or January 12th, 2015?
I don't, and I feel like I would remember that.
Tell the jurors why you remember that, if you don't mind.
Well, the McDonald's, as they've heard, was the McDonald's at Old Hayville and Cleveland Avenue.
151 Cleveland Avenue?
Yeah, I think that's the address. Whatever. It's at the intersection, at or near the intersection of Old. Yes, I believe that's the address. What you just said, and that was said to be a rendezvous point, the parking lot of which. So I would have remembered I would have remembered it because, first of all, I've never seen that video. I've never seen any surveillance video from McDonald's. So if I were to read something that said from a law enforcement officer said they did review it, I would have said, well, I would have remembered. That would have been a big thing for me. I would want to have had the video. So no, I don't recall any notations from Detective Thorpe about him reviewing the video and not obtaining it, presumably. So no, I don't remember anything like that.
And if that video, if it's working and if it captures the area that this, what was your word, rendezvous? Is that what you just said?
I think so.
Okay. And the rendezvous, according to Mr. Copeland, let's say, it might be others, but at approximately 8 o'clock at night, January 10th, 2015, approximately.
Mm-hmm.
You could correct me, if my times are off. If that surveillance at the McDonald's captured people actually meeting, then we would know who was actually there and if Mr. Copeland was being straightforward. Is that fair to say?
Speculation.
Sustained.
Did Detective Thorpe ever tell you, besides his file, did he tell you that he went out and looked at and saw or tried to see the video from the 10th day of January 2015, approximately 8 o'clock p.m. from the McDonald's?
Yeah.
I covered this with Detective Thorpe, and I'm impeaching him.
Overruled.
I don't recall him telling me that. It doesn't mean that he didn't, but I just don't recall it. It just seems like something that would leave a mental impression on me because, again, I would have just thought, well, where's the video? I don't have the video. I would have liked to know that. So I don't think he ever did.
In your experience since, I believe you said 2012, but it might have been 2009, with the DA's office in Fulton County, have you looked at and subpoenaed, whether for a grand jury or, a court's search warrant, surveillance video from stores?
I have, yeah.
Have you found that after a certain period of time, some of the video is erased or deleted?
Yes, that's the practice. Videos are all digital. I don't want to say they're all digital. There may still be people using tapes, but every video I've ever seen has been digital, and they only have so much room on the computer system that's storing the video, and eventually will start overwriting itself.
Explain, first of all, this includes 2015?
Yes.
Okay. Tell the jurors what you mean. I know you're comfortable with it, but overriding itself. Just explain that process from your experience, knowledge, and work with these.
Well, just like every computer surveillance system, cameras are hooked up to essentially a computer. The footage is recorded digitally and stored on a drive, some sort of media in the computer, but that drive can only store so much data, so many ones and zeros, I suppose. And so once the drive is full, the system is programmed to just, it's not like a tape where it starts in the beginning of the tape and starts overwriting it, but it starts writing data to the parts of the drive that already have data on it. And over time, the data just starts to rewrite itself. And eventually, after a certain amount of time, all traces of the footage from a certain date will eventually be gone as they've been overwritten by data from other footage.
So just putting that make it simple, on a date. Have you seen surveillance video that lasts 30 days?
I believe so. I don't want to throw out any names. But there's one place in particular that comes to mind, but it's not relevant here, and I also don't remember exactly. But I do believe that 30 days I have seen before.
Okay. What's a typical days until it starts overriding?
I'm going to ask an answer to speculation that relates to McDonald's video.
I'm impeaching
Oh.
Detective Thorpe.
I feel maybe 2 weeks. That's always what I kind of mark in my mind as if it's within 2 weeks of an event. I mean, you want to get the video as soon as possible, to be clear. But I really start losing hope after 2 weeks. But again, it depends on this. It could be a big retail outfit. Now going back to 2015, it may be a little different, and maybe they just have petabytes of storage for their video and it's stored off site. But your typical, like a gas station, particularly in 2015, where it was stored within, probably on a DVR, you're going to want to get that as soon as possible. You can start overwriting after 48 hours.
And when you say then it writes it over, so if I'm just using 2 weeks, okay?
Mm-hmm.
January 1, 2015, 2 weeks would go to approximately January 14, 2015.
Right.
On January 15, 2015, does the entirety, in your experience and your dealing with this, does the entirety of everything in those 2 weeks go away, or is it on a rolling basis?
Going to object to that was an answer on
Not of this witness.
and speculation as to this witness.
He's asking within his experience, overruled.
Okay, so are we talking about one location and one, if we're talking about surveillance footage, one location and one computer system, or are we talking about in the entire world of surveillance footage?
McDonald's, 2015, January 10th, surveillance, just typical McDonald's, your experience, hypothetically 2 weeks. I want to know on the 15th day, so I'm just after the 2 weeks, what you're explaining to the jury, does day one, January 1 override, or the entirety from January 1 to 2014? That's my question.
To lack of foundation at this point.
Sustained.
In your experience with a 2 week camera, does it override just one day at a time? As the
An
next day
objective
comes in, the first
vague.
day's gone.
Vague as to your experience to a camera in a 2 week period. Any camera. I mean,
Sustained.
When you say override, tell the jurors what you meant by that.
asked and answered.
Sustained.
I don't believe he just
Yeah, he
used the
did.
word.
He explained it in detail.
All right. Did you or any of your members of your team, I'm including the prosecution team, you understand what I'm asking?
Mhm.
So prosecution team are all law enforcement, GBI crime lab, your office, whomever, okay? FBI. Did you ever find out from any source the McDonald's, how long, if at all, they had that surveillance video?
The record retention period for surveillance video, if I knew it, I don't remember it now. So no, I can't answer. I don't know what their retention period was back then, nor do I know what it is now.
Did you ever hear from a detective, you know who Detective Gaither, Detective Dennis, they worked together, gang unit in 2015, January?
Yes, I know them.
Okay. Did they ever tell you or put in writing in any way that they went to the McDonald's in June 11, 2015 and inquired about the surveillance?
Objection, hearsay.
I am impeaching Detective Gaither's testimony.
And who are you asking about at this point?
Detective Gaither, January 11th, 2015, going to McDonald's and inquiring about the video.
And that is hearsay, and it's not impeachment unless they specifically confronted
Sustained.
Detective
I
Gaither
did confront Detective
Gaither?
Gaither.
with
Yes.
telling Mr. Sprinkle as to whether they got video surveillance footage or not.
I want to know if it's in. I want to know if it's in his
Detective Gaither
records.
was not confronted with that.
Okay, sustained.
I want to know if it's in the records.
That wouldn't be, then that would, rephrase your question. That question, the objection is sustained.
Do you have any information from any source that you looked at in your records, conversations that Detective Gaither and or Detective Dennis went to the McDonald's on the day after interviewing Kenneth Copeland, June 11, 2015, and inquired about their surveillance